What's up, guys? I'm Joe. Welcome to another installment of Quick Thoughts, where I talk about some albums quickly. So yeah, here we go. I got 5 more albums. I've done one of these already. Basically, it's just a chance for me to catch up on some stuff I may have missed, that maybe got put on the back burner, or I didn't have time to do it, or I was just feeling lazy. So first up is Maroon 5's Red Pill Blues. I've definitely given up on any hope that this band is going to go back to their original sound. I actually fairly enjoyed those first 2 records. They had a lot of good hits on them. They were catchy music, of course, but there was a bit of an alternative rock edge, or even on the second album, bringing in some funk and some soul influence. Ever since then, they've gone really off the deep end with the pop stuff, more and more over time. And that's where we really see them here. There's sort of like a synth pop kind of feel to a lot of these songs. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot going on as far as hooks, I feel like. There's no big, catchy pop singles on here. Unlike the last record, V or 5, whatever it is, that songs like Sugar and Maps and stuff like that. Just really big, hooky songs that just got huge. I'm just not really seeing that here. I think the album overall is fairly boring. Though I will say there are some good moments. I think Lips on You is a pretty good song. I haven't seen much in the way of people talking about that one, but I think that one has one of the best hooks towards the end there. And then instrumentally is actually pretty good. What Lovers Do, not a bad song, not a bad single, but again, not one I see reaching the heights of something like Sugar. Another thing that I found odd about this is the apparent 7 people that are now in the band. You're really not hearing the instrumentality that you would expect from 7 people, except for maybe on this last track, Closure. This thing is way too long, goes on for 11 so minutes with this sort of kind of jam. I guess the members of the band kind of get to stretch their arms a little bit here, do a little bit of jamming here and there, but, just very constrained, very minimal, so not much comes in the way of that. Overall, I'm going to give this album 2 out of 5. Next up is Evanescence Synthesis. This album features Amy Lee from Evanescence, doing a whole bunch of new renditions of some older tracks. There are some new songs on here as well, just 2 of them. And then apart from that, some, interludes and things like that, kind of pulled together conceptually. But here you're getting reworkings of older Evanescence songs with, primarily an orchestra playing. I thought it was a great concept when it was announced because, Evanescence is a very dramatic type band that I thought an orchestra would lend itself very well to. However, this doesn't really quite get the job done. I guess what I would have initially expected was Evanescence with an orchestra, the heavy guitars and stuff like that. You're not really getting that here. Guitars aren't really there, kind of minimal. Also, I find the instrumental underneath the orchestra to be very lacking. The band uses a sort of sparse and fairly weak sounding electric sound to go under this orchestrated stuff. And that kind of just sucks the life out of some of the songs for me. Ultimately, I find myself wanting to just go back to listening to some regular Evanescence records. That being said, there are some moments that work fairly well, such as the song Imaginary. It was cool to see that on here, kind of a deep cut. Again, it lends itself very well to the orchestrated stuff. It reaches a big crescendo like I would have expected from more of these songs. I think Lost in Paradise does a pretty good job with that as well, as far as really building up the, sort of epicness that you would expect with Evanescence backed by an orchestra. So I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5. Up next, August Burns Red, Phantom Anthem. For me, this band has been on a pretty solid streak pretty much all the way throughout the career. I got into them more around the time of Leveler in 2011, but then I thought they came back with Rescue and Restore, which was even better. Then they had Found in Faraway Places, which I thought was even better than that. By that point, I had gone through their whole discography and just, really enjoyed the band as a whole. Found in Faraway Places, I think what really stuck out to me about that album was the, very good mix of, a melodic sense, as well as the heavy material that they had been known for. Phantom Anthem, I think, sees them going back to more of just a aggressive, heavy take, much less melodic than the previous record, but nonetheless, brings in a lot of aspects that I do like about this band. I've always been a fan of the sort of, instrumental interludes that they allow themselves to go into. Usually really changing up the song and really going through these different cool musical passages. On here you see that, on a song like Float, which is a standout to me. But apart from that, you're just getting, a lot of aggression, a lot of heaviness. It makes for a really great metal album. Quake is another standout, which has just this excellent breakdown section. And so overall, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Up next, we have Citizen with As You Please. A band that I'm pretty new to. I just heard of them once this record came out. But they're pretty solid, alternative, indie, maybe kind of emo band. They definitely have a lot of tendencies that remind you of a band like Brand New especially, which works pretty well. It makes for a pretty compelling album and definitely a good one for a newer band. They do get pretty wound up, I think, in that Brand New influence, but it doesn't quite pack the punch that band does. But overall it makes for a pretty decent album. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. And finally for this one we have Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile with Lotta Lice. This is a collaborative record, one that I was pretty excited for, mostly because of Courtney Barnett. A fairly new artist whose debut was, pretty great in my opinion. She brought a lot of grungy elements, a lot of like 90s alternative type feel, but her delivery as a vocalist is similar to the likes of Bob Dylan, where it's kind of conversational in tone. And Kurt Vile turns out, someone that I'm relatively new to, has a very similar style, and they make it work very well on here. As I said, the conversational type tone, they're back and forth as vocalists. It just sounds like they're having a conversation, which is pretty interesting, and I thought it was something that was fairly different. You see that predominantly on a song like Over Everything, and the way they just converse back and forth is really cool. Big standout for me is Fears Like a Forest. I feel like Courtney gets to really shine here. Brings like a nice bluesy, nice driving approach to the song. Something that could be said about both artists here is the guitar work is really cool. It makes for a sort of dreamy, kind of floating type feel to a lot of these songs, especially the way Kurt Vile, picks the guitar. So that's another great one. I'm going to give that one a 4 out of 5. So yeah, that's it for this rendition of Quick Thoughts. Let me know what you think of the albums in the comments. As usual, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more reviews up here for you to check out. So thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.